Welcome everybody, and welcome to worship. Particular welcome to our people online, and a big welcome to Bobby. Nice to see you here, Bobby. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet. Where we sit today is across the land of the Eastern Kulin Nation. I would also like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and honour those on other lands around Australia that people are online with, and all our First Nations people. Well, today's theme is Love Wins. Great theme, one of the great themes in the Bible, and it's just important. This whole issue of love wins. We all want to be loved. We all want to love. We want to be loved by our families, in our work and in our relationships, and every person in every part of the earth wants to be loved. So much of the love in our society is based on, I'll love you if. In other words, I'll love you if you give something back to me. And many of us grew up believing that God would love us if we are good or whatever it is. Of course, Jesus turned that on its head and showed us how to love. So we're looking forward to what you're going to talk to us about this morning, David. So it'll be great. It's a wonderful theme. What I thought I'd do to start this morning is do a meditation. And I'm going to read to you a poem that I didn't save for myself, and which will also be on screen. And then Jen's going to play us a piece of music for a few minutes, and I'll just get you to sit with this poem. This poem is Let Your God Love You, and it's a wonderful poem. So I'll just get you to reflect on that, and if you don't want to reflect on the poem, and the words will be on the screen, then just sit with the music and just take some time to be with yourself and with your God. So let me read you these words, and then Bo will, Jem will, not Bo, Jem will play some music for us. Let your God love you. Be silent. Be still. Alone. Empty. Before your God. Say nothing. Ask nothing. Be silent. Be still. Let your God look upon you. That is all. God knows. God understands. God loves you with an enormous love and only wants to look upon you with that love. Quiet, still, be. Let your God love you. The other person I didn't welcome was Mike. So welcome, Mike. Great to have you here in the flesh. Yeah. And Mike's going to come and light the Christ candle, and then Sue's going to read us this morning's reading, and it's going to be followed by a song that Tim's going to lead us. So, thanks, Mike.
I've learned a new little trick. I'm reading today from Matthew, chapter 18, verses 15 to 20. If your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take one or two others along with you, that every word may be confirmed by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly, I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Again, I say to you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them.
Hello?
Hello.
Bobby, how are you going?
Good.
Good. May my life be my life. My life be a constant response to you. May my life be a path that leads around to you. Touch my life, I pray. Every words I say, you, I worship you. May my life be an everyday response to you. May my life be an everyday offense to you. Sacrificing more than perfect all for you. I worship you. May my life be an everyday response to you. May my life be an everyday response to you. Sacrificing with my heart, my soul, I
Well, it's good to be here again this morning. Just a couple of things before I start. First of all, I feel like I need to make an apology to Peter because I didn't intentionally wear black and white this morning. Just sort of, and it wasn't until after we'd had our conversation about the football that I thought, I hope he's not thinking I'm rubbing it in. But now you do. The other thing, we're obviously experimenting with our furniture arrangement these days. The new setup is just wonderful, really is great, and we'll be getting better. It's just amazing, but we're really keen to find how we can best utilise the space. So we've tried the tables and chairs. We're trying this morning. The board, and Cole as chair of the board, is really keen to get your feedback. So please assail him with your affirmations and your complaints, and the board will consider what is the best. And it might be that we try different things for a while yet, but bear with us in the experimentation phase because we're trying to find the best way of actually utilising this wonderful space that we're creating. So, okay, so a meme came across my Facebook page this week, and it went like this. It is misleading to say that God accepts us the way we are. Rather, he accepts us despite the way we are. He receives us only in Christ and for Christ's sake, nor does he mean to leave us the way he found us, but to transform us into the likeness of his Son. Well, that sounds like pretty conventional Christian theology, doesn't it? Something that, if a preacher got up and spouted that, you'd nod your head to and say, yes, that's the way it is. That's the way it's always been. I can accept that. Maybe you'd even give it a like on Facebook without taking any exception to the words or the sentiment that we have heard so many times before. But I do take exception. Because it is predicated on an understanding of God with which I am no longer comfortable, an image of God with which I can no longer live. Quite apart from the assignation of male gender to God, the statement betrays a foundational belief that God's disposition towards humankind is basically one of rejection. That humanity is somehow flawed and somehow unworthy of relationship with God without the saving grace, as they say, of Jesus. It's the old chestnut that we noted a couple of weeks ago, the argument that because God is perfect and we are imperfect, there can be no relationship with God until we claim the sacrifice of Jesus as a substitute for the death our sinfulness warrants. So here's the next sort of confession. For the first time ever, I'm using my iPad for my notes. Now, I've agonized about it all week. And even this morning, sitting there to Heather, should I or shouldn't I? Well, everybody else does it. Not everybody. Thank you, Meryl. Anyway, here I am. But it keeps sliding down look at it. It's sliding down the lectern. You can't see that. But so I'm going to use your iPad because John also does this to hold mine in place. That's much better. So what nonsense that meme is. I know so many people who are not Christian, but people who don't proclaim Jesus as Lord, and yet who live so clearly in close relationship with God. People such as that totally disprove the reasoning of that meme. Indeed, as Jim Palmer from the Centre for Non-Religious Spirituality has written, the point of Jesus was to obliterate the religious falsehood that God and humankind are separated. and to show that humankind and God are inseparable and one. But for some perverse reason, the concept of God as a vindictive, punitive, judgmental, and bad-tempered critic of humanity has persistently won out over the concept of God as a gracious, compassionate, accepting, loving embracer of humanity. Well, I want to stand before you, but with you this morning to proclaim our unconditional affirmation that when it comes to thinking about God's disposition toward humankind, love wins. Last Sunday morning, Danny reflected brilliantly on the transactional theology that has so dominated Christian teaching and so skewed our understanding of God, with its argument that we have to do something or pay something to earn God's favour or God's blessing, and that if we don't do the right thing or don't pay the right price, if we break our side of the transaction, then God is required to punish us, to withdraw from us, to, in the worst case scenario, send us to hell. It sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? And yet it's dominated Christian thinking for millennia. Why? Why does anyone think such logic is reasonable? Well, I can think of a couple reasons why people might think it's reasonable. Perhaps we have such a low opinion of ourselves and of humanity that we feel like we deserve a God such as that. We deserve to be punished. We deserve eternal damnation. Or perhaps we are so steeped in that transactional eye for an eye, or so embedded in materialist values like you get what you deserve, or you get out of life and faith what you put into it, that we simply can't conceive of a different dynamic of relationship, whether with God or sometimes with other people, or even perhaps with nature. Transactional thinking colours our understanding not just of God, but of the world in which we live. Take this morning's gospel reading. It seems straightforward, doesn't it? Try hard to be reconciled with your enemies. Do everything you can to make peace with them. But if they refuse to come to the party, well, treat them as you would a Gentile and a tax collector. And our minds inevitably go to the portrayal of Gentiles and tax collectors as outcasts, as those shunned by the pious religious leaders of Jesus' day. But why do we go in that direction? Why do we not stop and ask, how did Jesus treat Gentiles and tax collectors? Well, he engaged with them. He ate with them. He partied with them. Indeed, he loved them. In other words, if you can't make peace with your enemies, just love them. Because Jesus knows love wins. I wonder what might change in the world if we were to take Jesus' teaching in this episode seriously. Which brings us to the second of our Numa videos with Rob Bell. This one is called Lump, and I think you'll see why I've chosen to use it this morning.
oval. I'm struck with the fact that I've never seen it before. And so I turn to Kristen and say, like, hey, where does white ball come from? Where'd you get it? She says, I have no idea. I've never seen it before. And our boys are over here. She says, you guys, where does white ball come from? I haven't seen it before. And the one son, my younger son, he says, wow, I don't know, I've never seen it. And my older son says, it's just the strangest thing. I don't know where it came from. You know where it came from? And then he like keeps going in the same voice. He's like, it's just the strangest thing. And this little white ball did appear out of nowhere. Who knows where it came from? And Kristen and I look at each other, and we have this look between us, like, you know who this boy is? And for a few brief moments, it's some other kid, and he just keeps going with these bizarre gestures. It's like he's been possessed by the spirit of Urkel or something. For a few brief moments, he's this other boy. You know, I don't know where it came from. But I mean, it's just like it's just a little white ball, and Chris and I look at each other like this is not that big of a deal. So a couple days later, my wife is home with the boys, and she's in one room, and they're playing in another room, and she hears this ruckus, and the two of them run into the room where she's at. The younger son is crying, and he's insisting that his brother hit him. My older son is going, I didn't hit him. I don't know what you're talking about. It's the strangest thing. It's the weirdest thing. I didn't hit him. Tears streaming down his face. I'm like, no, he hit me. And my older son is, I don't know what you're talking about. It's the strangest thing. It's the weirdest thing. And then Kristen just says to him, kind of like you don't know where the white ball came from. He just freezes. The technical legal word here is busted. You know that moment when your junk catches up to you? It's like maybe not that day, maybe not the next day, maybe not for a while. But give it enough time, it always finds us. Like there's this great phrase, wherever you go, there you are. It's written in the Bible in the book of Galatians. Like, don't be misled. No one makes a fool out of God. Whatever we plant, we'll end up harvesting. It's like one way or another, given enough time, our sins find us out. It always catches up with us, doesn't it? So my boy stands there in front of his mom, frozen. And then he turns and runs upstairs. Because sometimes it's easier to run upstairs, isn't it, than to face the truth. Now this whole time, I haven't even been there. I'm coming home and I call Kristen and she tells me this whole story. And so I'm driving along thinking, what am I supposed to do when I get home? I know I should do something, but I have no idea what to do. And so I get home and Kristen tells me that she hasn't heard a sound from him upstairs the whole time. So I go upstairs. And I go check in his room, he's not there. So I go and I check in his brother's room, he's not there. And then I check the bathroom, he's not there. Which leaves only one option, our bedroom. And so I go and I stand in the doorway of our bedroom and I look in, and there, in the middle of our bed, under the covers, is a lump the size and shape of my boy. And I mean, at this point, he's been under there in like 2 hours. It must be so hot, he must be so miserable. And can he even breathe under there? I feel like I should give him a snorkel. And he just must be miserable. And I start thinking about all the amends he's gonna need to make to his mom and to his brother and to me. And I think about whoever he took the white ball from. We're going to have to call them and at some point go over there. He's going to need to take the white ball back. He's going to need to apologize. And I stand in the doorway of the bedroom and I think about my boy and all of his shame. kind of shame that he would hide up in the covers for that long. So I go over and I sit down on the edge of the bed and I pull the covers back a little bit. The first thing I see is just this soaking wet hair, like he's been underwater. So I pull the covers slowly back until he's just lying there, all curled up with his eyes closed. And he doesn't move. It's like he has this choice. Like, does he continue? Does he grab the covers and pull them back over his head and keep hiding, or does he just let himself lie there, totally exposed and vulnerable? So I sit on the edge of the bed and I say to him, there's nothing you could ever do that make me love you less. And slowly he sits up and he opens his eyes and he plants the soaking wet head right in the middle of my formerly dry shirt. And he wraps his little wet, warm arms around me. He just starts sobbing. He cries and cries and cries. He's so sorry. So I sit on the edge of the bed, holding my boy with the covers pulled back, repeating, nothing you could ever do to make me love you less. Nothing you could ever do. Do you realize that? Do you know that? Nothing you could ever do to make me love you less. I mean, whatever you've done, wherever you've been, whatever you will do, God loves you and God always has. And you can't change that. Because sometimes the light bulb seems like a thing, doesn't it? It's like, how am I ever going to get away from it? And so we have no idea what to do with our shame, so we run upstairs and we hide under the covers and we keep hiding because we don't know where to go or what to do. Maybe you're like, yeah, but you don't understand what I've done. Or if you only knew, like it says in the book of Romans, chapter 8 of the Bible, there's nothing that can separate us from the love of God and Jesus. Nothing. Nothing. Nothing can separate you. So may you stop hiding under the covers. May you let God pull the covers back. May you embrace Him. May your whole life become a response to the truth that you've always been loved, you are loved, and you always will be loved. And may you know deep in the depths of your soul, there's nothing you could ever do to make Him love you less. Nothing you can ever do to make God love you less. Nothing you can ever do to make Him love you less. Nothing.
There is nothing you can ever do to make God love you less. Nothing. Think about that assertion, that sentence. Think about how overwhelmingly gracious it is and how completely liberating it is. Think about how believing it, how integrating it, would change the whole dynamic of my relationships. My self-understanding, my relationships with other people, my relationship with God, my relationship with all creation. If I can truly believe and live out of a place where I know I am loved unconditionally and unreservedly, then I no longer need to enter into those transactional relationships. I no longer need to prove myself worthy. I no longer need to define myself over and against others, or to make myself feel good by being better or more deserving than the next person. It really is a life-changing discovery. There is nothing you can ever do to make God love you less. Have you ever felt loved like that? Loved so deeply and generously? I know I have. It may, I'm sure it will surprise you to know that I'm not always the easiest person to live with. And I acknowledge very contritely that there have been occasions when I've given Heather every reason to give up on me. But she didn't. Instead, she offered unconditional love and forgiveness, and the experience of her grace and generosity was liberating and powerful in its ability to transform shame into dignity and darkness into light. Love wins. I tell you this simply because I hope you have perhaps had similar experiences in your life. Because if you have, you will understand how it changes the dynamic of relationship. Frees us from a transactional approach to life to live in the freedom of grace and delight. The bottom line is there is only love. Of course, there is sadness and injustice and even hate in our world and perhaps in our lives. But the good news, the only news, is that in the end, given a chance, love wins. Ultimately, there is only love. In another recent post, Jim Palmer, again of the Centre for Non-Religious Spirituality, wrote this. That's an excerpt from it on the screen. What he wrote was this: someone needs to hear this. You're not going to hell. There is no hell. You can't be separated from God. You're not bad, you're not a sinner, you don't need forgiveness for what and who you are. You are deserving of acceptance, love, and regard just as you are. I could spend 5 minutes with you and easily find 10 things that are good, beautiful, special, and extraordinary about who you are. Every human being has their share of life's messes, mistakes, disasters, and regrets. There's nothing wrong with you because you have yours. The universe celebrates you being you. The world is a better place when you express who you really are: your heart, your personality, your idiosyncrasies, your life experience, your thoughts and feelings, your goodness, your courage. You are not what happened to you, but who you choose to become. And as the poet Hafiz has said, the sun never says to the earth, you owe me. And look what happens with a love like that. It lights up the sky. I am not a sinner saved by grace, as is typically taught in the Christian church. I'm a human being stretching out into the fullness of my potentials and possibility. I wasn't born bad. I was born human, which means I'm capable of great goodness or perhaps great harm. And one of the primary factors that will shape the choices I make around that is the degree to which I can believe and integrate the affirmation that there is nothing I can ever do to make God love me less. Nothing. In finishing, I want to invite you to do something, well, I think it's significant. I want to invite you to change the way, perhaps, you see or perceive God whenever that word is used. In fact, I'd like to encourage you to give up trying to see or perceive God at all, because doing that really isn't helpful. We always want to concretize the concept of God, and we too easily default back to that grey-haired old man sitting on a cloud hurling thunderbolts or plagues or pestilence or some variation on that theme. So don't try to picture God at all. Instead, I invite you to try being present to this moment. Attend to the air around you as you breathe. Attend to the sounds that you can hear, the people, the feelings, the subtle comforts and perhaps discomforts. Hear the heater buzzing away. Hear the breathing of the person next to you or behind you. Hear the cars passing by. Maybe hear your own heart beating in its life-giving rhythm. This is life we're listening to. Now, conceptualize and feel, if you can, all that life around you as a loving embrace, as a moment in which you are deeply known and unconditionally loved. Bask for a moment in what it feels like to be embraced by the life that surrounds you, to be loved so deeply and completely. Feel your connection to the sea of love that flows throughout this room, that flows out into our online networks, that flows throughout this diverse nation in which we live, this mind-blowing global community of which we are part, that flows throughout the universe in which we are but a speck. And sensing that loving connection to the universe, consider how you might choose to live as you learn to swim in this ocean of love. The ocean of love that is God, by whatever name we choose to know it. There is only love, and love wins. Amen.
Thank you for putting my slide up there. That was during the marriage plebiscite when we had our flags up down at Highfield Road, and I thought it was very appropriate for this gathering. My prayer today is based on a blessing by Glyn Cardy, who's a progressive Christian Anglican minister in New Zealand, and I've paraphrased and expanded. Bless us with a nurturing love, warm wrapped in daily affirmation. May we know that whatever might happen, we hold each other in our hearts, ready to be what each needs at hand, ready to be beside, imparting strength. Bless us with a wild love that comes like a gust of wind, whipping our hair, filling us with possibility, propelling us forward, lifting our hearts. It will not leave us the same, once felt, never forgotten. Bless us with the love of a pet, snuggling into that empty space, touching us with need and affection, ready to be, do, eat, go and explore. With kinesthetic pleasure, a constant in rhythm with the heart. Bless those with well-aged love that has travelled many a road, has rounded many a bend and known much happiness. Cares are assuaged, the stars smile and home is together. Bless those with new love, finding their way together, learning how to support and prefer each other, walking together in rain and shine, making new patterns of life. Bless us with love for our neighbours, those close by that we can name, those far away who will remain strangers. May we care for them all as we are able, striving to obey the commandment to love our neighbours as ourselves. Amen.
Jesus' mission was to make the world easier to love, which I think is a good way to look at the referendum. What's the best way to show our love for First Nations Australians? Jesus turned love on its head by showing us how to love, from the bottom of society up. He showed love to the disadvantaged, to the poor, the stigmatised, the shame, and he put love into action. He actually did it as he lived. And his message, we are all loved by God, every one of us. And there is no ifs about it. We are just loved as we are. So as we share these symbols of Jesus' love this morning with the bread and the wine, and we've come back to our old symbols this morning, which I hope everyone's got. So just when we spend some time together, as we take the bread and the wine in our own time, may you just sense being loved by God this morning. Just see if you can sit in that space of just being loved for who you are, just as you are.
The song is, "Oh God, you search me and know me." Oh God, you search me and you know me. All my thoughts I open to your gaze. When I walk and your down you are before me. Ever the maker and keeper of my days. You know my resting and my rising. You discern my purpose from afar. And with love everlasting you beseech me. May I went of them and that we are. Oh Lord, there's always that I am Lord. Even straight and stream through and through. And with love every simple understanding. Ever the present and past and future too. Oh God, you know me and you know me. All my hearts they tender of my life. And his arms and mistake. In the darkness and gleamings of my life. Oh, you created me and shaped me. In the life within my mother's womb. And to all that you have created. This world of hazard.
Thanks, Tim. Well, it's a pretty simple take home today. Love wins, and we are all loved just as we are. We do not need to be or to do anything. We're just loved for who we are. Bobby, do you want to come up and sing the closing benediction? You're a good man. Go for it, mate.
May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rain falls soft upon your field. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of your hand. May God hold you in the palm of your hand.
Thanks, mate. Oh, that's not on the agenda.
Thanks. I mentioned last Sunday that, so 2 weeks today, we're planning to have a special general meeting of Hartwell, and we're hoping to be able to bring to the church a recommendation to employ a new ministry leader. Now, we do have a board meeting this Tuesday night, as David mentioned, and so the board will be reviewing that recommendation on Tuesday night, which is why we don't have any information for you just at the moment. But hopefully next Sunday we'll have something a bit more to explain a bit about the candidate and why we think this is a good decision. So So there'll be a bit more information next Sunday, but just to let you know, 2 weeks' time after church, we'll be having a special general meeting. And this is a pretty exciting development for us as a community. We're a bit light on for staff at the moment, you might have noticed. In fact, David's our only staff person, and he's employed 10 days a week. And that was a bit of a that was actually not intentional to say that, but he is actually working more than 10 hours a week. And David and I actually caught up for lunch on Thursday and had a great chat in Mitcham. And we spent most of that time talking about some of the stuff that's going on with our community and the challenge of keeping things going without staff. David's only working or being paid for 10 hours a week. And obviously, there's a lot of people that volunteer as part of our community. But David, I'd really like to thank you for going that extra mile at the moment. And I know that, let's give him a clap. Good on you, Bobby. And hoping that within a short period of time, retirement can maybe look a little bit more like what you thought it might look like. And Heather, thanks for your forbearance as well. And I'm hopeful that in the next few months, so this new person will hopefully be starting at the start of January, but I'm hoping in the next few months that we can start to sort out some of the other admin work that is around and hopefully lighten your load a bit before then. So I just wanted to let you know that. And was there anything else, John? No.
Morning to you. We're good to mention next Sunday, because Andy will be leading the contemplative gathering next Sunday at Highfield Road. So, in other words, providing a correction.
And also just Dish, they've got Dish at Rosemary.
Oh, and Dish next week at Rosemary's. Thanks, Bobby.